Last month, serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer was found sane and sentenced to 936 years in prison. Here is the prosecuting attorney in that case, Michael McCann. Hi, Mr. McCann. First off, I want to hire you to bring suit against whoever's trying to pass that black stuff off as authentic detailing. Now, do you think that America finds it, what do you think's more comforting for America in the dark recesses of its collective psyche, to have this man be considered sane or insane?
I think you'd find a division on that. He is actually a very sane man. I spent time observing him carefully. I think people are struck by the strangeness of what he did, particularly with the deceased persons afterwards, and the fact that he got away with it. It's very troubling. If he were to join this group, I can assure you that no one in this crowd would be able to identify him by any strange act that he might do. In other words, the most distressing thing about it is that he would mix with people and could not be identified.
What I actually heard or read that some people found him charming in the courtroom. Is that?
One of the psychiatrists testified that he had a certain force of personality. And this was an individual that was accepted by co-workers. In fact, we called as witnesses two of his employers. He had done a good job, appeared regularly at work, and I think that distresses people. You understand that he fooled the victims. 17 persons were brought to his home. One would like to think that you could somehow identify such an individual for our own safety. You would like to believe that if such an individual with such inclinations, that somehow you would sense it. He fooled police departments, he fooled probation workers. He was a man that was gifted in many ways. Several of the psychiatrists felt that he had a superior intelligence. I would agree with that.
Mm-hmm. You know, I think often that on the polar aspect of this country, people always find the East and West Coast to be sort of hubs of bizarre behavior. But I'm always amazed at the amount of times it happens in our heartland. Why do you think that is? That Milwaukee, I can't imagine a place I would least expect this to happen.
Yes, and for very good reason, because it's a wonderful city in many ways, and very typically we are among the lowest crime rates in terms of the four most prominent FBI type of crime ratings. He is a man, though, that could occur in any jurisdiction. He is a true serial killer. Mass killers are people that take a number of lives in one instant. Serial killers tend to be found sane, not insane, and tend to be people with a good deal of cunning involved. In this particular case, you must understand the police did not know what was occurring. He was totally disposing of the bodies. Can you imagine having a son whom you love very dearly suddenly disappear? No body found. Even to have a body found, as difficult as it is, you reconcile yourself when the healing starts after the burial. But in one particular case, the boy that he slew in 1978 in Ohio, that family did not learn what happened to their boy until 1991. You can imagine the agony of that.
They never even get to initiate the grieving process till after a decade
later. One of the families in Milwaukee where the body was totally destroyed. There's nothing to recover. One of those families is having a very difficult time accepting that he's dead. And indeed, the sister has said to me, and I've spent a great deal of time with the victims, the sister has insisted several times, no, she believes he's alive. She's saying that emotionally. In her mind, she knows it, but it's very difficult to reconcile that loss.
I think it's easy for us to obviously understand that trauma incurred by the families. How is the city itself? Is it bouncing back? Is there a specter?
Yes, it's coming back. I think the city, for the most part, was very pleased with the verdict, and I think there's a healing started then. And it had a negative impact, of course it would. But it's a beautiful city in many ways. I studied as a student in Detroit, Washington, D.C., and Boston, and yet chose to return to Milwaukee because it has so many attractive aspects to it. It caused a fissure in the community, but the healing has started, and I'm confident that we have a type of community where that healing will continue, and hopefully will come back an even stronger community than we were.
I've been there for the Summerfest, or is that what it's called? Summerfest?
Sure.
And it's just a beautiful bunch of people. I hope they all...
Every weekend during the summer we have delightful ethnic festivals.
Yeah.
We have a variety from Eastern and Western Europe, Africa, American Native festivals that are the envy of the world, I believe. It's by the lake, a beautiful park, the Summerfest grounds. Beautiful music.
Yeah, so let's get Milwaukee back on the way to...
I work on the Irish Fest myself, and it's said to be...
Is there any beer drunk at that Irish Fest, Michael? I have to take a break. I want to come back and I want to talk to you about this very dicey area of insanity versus sanity. And we'll be right back with Michael McCann after this. We're back with Michael McCann. Before I move into the legalese of that insanity plea and what you think of it, how much of a part do you think that the contemporary culture plays in this? There seems to be a macabre fascination in the arts right now with cannibalism. Did they feel that this played a part in Dahmer's thinking?
He won't directly say so, and he hasn't. We asked him whether any films he had seen played a role, and he said that it did not. But no doubt he's a product of the current culture, and there's no question that some of the films in recent years have contained horror that I think in the past was simply not tolerated in the media.
How frustrating is it for you as a prosecutor to go up against the insanity plea, and is it being tightened up, the stipulations, to make an insanity
Well,
plea?
it certainly was tightened up after the Hinckley case on the federal level. You may recall the Hinckley case, the jury came back that he was sane. And after that, in 1984, the federal Congress changed the law and made it substantially more difficult to prove insanity in a federal case. We have what's called the ALI, American Law Institute, and the test is whether due to a mental disease or defect, the person lacked either the substantial capacity to appreciate the wrongfulness of his conduct or to conform his conduct to the requirements of the law. The defendant bears the burden to prove that, not the state. In the Hinckley case, it was the same rule roughly, but in the Hinckley case, the government bore the burden of proving that he was sane.
And that changed right after that?
That did. In 1984, about 2 years later, there was a reaction across the country of the strong feeling that he ought not to have been found insane. And the law was changed, tightened up substantially at the federal level. A number of other states, in reaction to the Hinckley verdict, also tightened up their law.
Is the definition of insanity an across-the-board one in legal cases, or is it a state-by-state?
It's state-by-state, except the federal government. Of course, that would include all defenses in the federal courts. However, most insanity and most street crimes where insanity is raised, most murder and street crimes are tried in the state courts. So as a result, this was a new type of defense. It's not found frequently. It's called paraphilia. This was an odd sexual desire that this man had. It was odd in the sense not so much that his reactions were different than ourselves, but the object of his sexual desire was a totally passive individual or a dead body. And of course, that's very strange.
Now, at the end of this long, obviously the most ghastly of all proceedings, how do you must have incredibly mixed feelings when you win. What were your feelings when that verdict was announced?
Well, I was relieved for our community because I think had it been otherwise, some of the tension would have continued. And inevitably, 5 or 10 years from now, he would have sought to be released, and which would have caused a great deal of anxiety. I was pleased with the verdict. It takes a lot of preparation. We faced some very competent psychiatrists on the other side. We did use a California psychiatrist. Park Dietz is our lead psychiatrist, and a second, Dr. Fosdell from Madison. They were both very qualified psychiatrists. And around the country, district attorneys were worried that this type of paraphilic defense would be used in pedophile cases, that's child molesting cases, and rape cases.
So it was important to take a stand right at this and not let the barrier be pushed back any further. When I said mixed feelings, I didn't mean, I just meant, obviously, nobody revels in a human being being this broken.
And the family stood by him, his family did, which was to their credit, in my opinion. The families, of course, of the victims who had a terribly difficult time, but they took it with strength and integrity, and I was very pleased the way they bore it.
Thanks for giving us a little insight, Mr. McCann. Michael McCann, folks. We'll be right back with more Robin Hitchcock and the Egyptians after this.